Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. CPA Esther Aliwat Sache, the coordinator for this program. But before I introduce our session chair, at this moment we are having CPA 18, integration of knowledge. And then tomorrow we shall be having CPA 17, advanced taxation, 9 to 10:30, and then CPA 9 during the mid-morning. So kindly encourage your friends to attend our webinars so that we can be able to benefit from the program. So CPA Charles Yalhanga is our session chair. CPA Charles, you're welcome.
Thank you, Esther, for introducing me as the chair of this session, in which we're going to be looking at the integration of knowledge to engage students in integration of knowledge. And I can see the participants are fast increasing. The presenter for the session is the CPA Andrew Kawere, and I can see he's already in the house. Allow me to introduce him just before I invite him to take over and present what he has prepared for us. CPA Andrew Kawere has extensive experience in auditing, accounting, banking, and finance, which he has obtained from various sectors in both the public and the private sectors. He started his career with a stint in public practice, and I think that was at KPMG. He can correct me if I have not said it well, if he was elsewhere, but my understanding he was at KPMG before moving on to banking, specifically development banking, and later on to financial sector regulatory roles, where he is currently performing his duties. In addition to a 20-year professional career, he has also pursued interests in teaching at professional and the tertiary institution level, specializing in the areas of auditing, accounting, integration of knowledge, and corporate strategy, among many other areas. He has also, in the past, facilitated on the MPA program at MOVES and on various programs at Mad Abacus Business School. He has also been engaged in consultancy roles to review the study curriculum and development of study materials for the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda, that is ICPAO. CPA Kawere also serves on the industry and the business panel of the Professional Standards Committee of the Council of ICPAU. He has also represented ICPAU on the National Information Security Advisory Group and is a senior technical resource person of the Institute, that is ICPAU, and is a retired 3-term founder board member of the Information Systems Audit and Control Association, that is ISACA, Kampala chapter. He is a member of the Kira Host Lions Club and is a certified information systems auditor, as well as a certified digital financial practitioner. CPA Kawere holds a first class bachelor's degree in commerce and MBA and a Master of Arts in Financial Services. Among others, that is his brief bio. And joining me to welcome CPA Kawere to make his presentation this afternoon. CPA Kawere, you are most welcome.
Thank you, Charles. May I confirm that you can hear me?
Oh, yes, loud and clear.
Hello?
Yes, please, I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello?
Yes, Andrew, I can hear you.
Seems there is a microphone issue. I can't hear Charles anymore. Let me just get off and on again. It seems I have a connection issue. I'm not hearing you anymore.
Andrew, we can hear you.
Andrew, we are hearing you. Hello, Andrew. We seem to have lost Andrew. I think let us be patient a little bit as he connects back.
Hello?
Yes, Andrew, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Okay, I can also hear you now. I had an issue.
Yes.
I couldn't hear you earlier.
Okay, please go on.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm happy to be here and hello, Charles.
Yes, Andrew, we can hear you.
All right, is the presentation visible?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues, once again. And I'm happy to share my thoughts with the team that is preparing for this paper this coming semester. I will take off maybe about 45 minutes or an hour, sharing with you my perspectives, and then we can have a conversation, including possible questions and answers later on during the presentation. So I will cover 4 broad areas, including a bit of an introduction. And in this, I will run through the learning outcomes for integration of knowledge. I will also share with you perspectives around what are considered to be core skills or core competencies that you need as candidates for this paper. Then we'll move into the approach, how best you should prepare for the paper. the kind of preparation that you need to do as you get yourselves ready for this, last hurdle in the CPAU qualification. Then we'll talk about some past observations and what you might need to look out for going forward. And we'll close with the discussions at the end. So I'm sure by now you've all had a look at the syllabus outline, the syllabus booklet, and what the Institute has published, the recently revised syllabus, which came out last year. You will note that in the new syllabus, the Institute has set out very clear expectations in terms of the level of assessment for each level in the course. So at the level where you are, which is the last level, paper 18 tests professional expertise. The paper tests your ability to deliver advisory services. Now, this is a paper that tries to estimate a real practical scenario. So at this level, you're going to sit for a 4 to 6 hour examination in which the examiners will assess your ability, or put differently, your readiness to deliver professional advisory services as an accountant. So what the paper is testing is professional expertise. That is what is being looked out for, professional expertise. It is not just professional knowledge, it is not just professional skills, but professional expertise. And the best way of demonstrating that is by showing that you can actually advise a client, you can advise an individual, you can advise a company in an acceptable way. So this assessment includes a test of professional skills and a test of technical skills, which are clearly expected at the lower levels. In other words, the general technical skills and the general professional skills that you will have acquired at the lower levels are assumed knowledge at this level. So what exactly do we mean by testing professional expertise? The examiners are going to be looking out for your ability to evaluate issues, your ability to analyze issues in an advanced manner, your ability to synthesize matters. They will test your presentation, ethical, professional, and communication skills. That skills package is what feeds into the professional expertise that the Institute is looking out for. So in terms of the aim, in terms of the purpose of the paper, integration of knowledge intends to equip you as candidates with skills to integrate the knowledge acquired over the years of study on the syllabus, and to equip you with competence to provide professional solutions. Now, we are emphasizing professional solutions because at the level where you are at, you should be going out to, the market as representatives, as ambassadors of the Institute. So you must demonstrate that you are ready to provide professional solutions. And that is something that you must keep thinking about as you prepare. You could even ask yourself, if I've done this work, will somebody pay for it? Will an individual out there be ready to engage me for a professional service with this kind of output that I'm tabling? That is the kind of test that the Institute is going to subject your work to when you sit this final examination. So ability to provide these solutions includes certain competences which you need to demonstrate, and they include the following areas. The first one, which I've already highlighted, is your ability to deliver professional solutions to business problems that involve the need for exercising judgment, the need for advanced analysis, the need to communicate and present matters in a professional way. That is critical. You are expected to be able to report solutions to business problems in an understandable manner. Okay. When they ask you to present your findings, you must present them in an understandable manner that portrays the maturity and seriousness of a qualified accountant. So how you present your issues, how you present the findings you'll have come up with from the assessments will be a matter of assessment. Judgment on advanced reporting issues and other issues. Judgment is not only about reporting. You must demonstrate that you are sound in judgment. If you look at those case studies that you will encounter, you'll find that the case studies have sometimes controversial issues. You'll find contradictory issues. Those are matters that give you the opportunity to exercise judgment. Those are matters that give you the opportunity to demonstrate that you are mature in terms of judgment, that you can make sound commercial decisions and advise a client based on practical realities, while at the same time incorporating the technical and ethical considerations that you've gone through over the years of study on the CPA course. You must demonstrate the ability to assess taxation, legal, and general regulatory issues to provide appropriate planning advice for individuals and businesses. And overall, you must also demonstrate the ability to develop and communicate appropriate solutions for financial planning purposes. Financial planning is one of the core elements in terms of advisory services of an accountant. And so number 5 speaks to those financial matters for which you must demonstrate ability as a core area of competence for an accountant. You are expected to evaluate and advise on corporate governance matters, ethical issues, and general risk management aspects. You realize that corporate governance was recently introduced at level 4 and strategy, governance, and leadership. So you now have a whole section on governance and risk management. So these are areas that you must be able to evaluate and advise clients on when it comes to paper 18. Number 7 is very, very important, and quite often, unfortunately, some candidates ignore it. You are required, or you are expected to demonstrate an understanding of the current affairs and issues that are affecting businesses. Current affairs varies with the topical issues, at different times. Okay, those issues could be around government policy. The issues could be around economic management. They could be legislative in nature. They could be geopolitical issues. They could be global developments in economic matters. So you must demonstrate knowledge of current affairs. And as you prepare, you will realize when you go through past papers that many times, not always, but many times, those question requirements reflect topical current affairs. So that is an area that I would urge you to always take keen interest in. And overall, the examiner expects you to demonstrate the ability to deliver professional solutions as a CPA, whether in public practice or whether in employment, or just, deliver of general advisory services, say under a management consultancy arrangement. This section on slide 7 is a direct extract from the learning outcomes. It's a direct extract from the syllabus booklet and the study materials from the institute. And this is just to give you a flavor of what the learning outcomes are. In totality, the CPAU course tests those 6 areas. Okay, It tests knowledge, which is about general recalling of facts and ideas previously learned. It tests comprehension. Comprehension is the ability to demonstrate understanding of facts, ideas, and organizing and comparing those ideas to pick out the main issues. It tests application, which is the use of knowledge and skills to solve problems. It tests analysis, which is about examination and breaking information into parts and making inferences or conclusions. Synthesis is a little higher than just evaluate analysis. It looks at combining, information in new patterns and proposing alternative solutions, while evaluation looks at, the whole package before you. It involves use of your judgment and making, again, reasonable conclusions which feed recommendations and interventions. Now, integration of knowledge specifically focuses on the last 4 areas. In integration of knowledge, the examiners are not looking for basic technical knowledge like you do in number 1. Neither is it basic comprehension in number 2. Okay, there is a little bit of application, correct? But most of what is expected of you at this level is analysis, detailed analysis, I should add, detailed analysis, synthesis of issues, and evaluation of matters. So integration of knowledge is focusing on analysis, synthesis of issues, and evaluation, not just basic knowledge of facts. And indeed, that is laid out in the next slide. For some reason, my slides are not moving. Yes, right there. So this slide lays out the areas of interest, and you will clearly see that the focus for integration of knowledge is in the upper side, the right-hand side. The focus is on synthesis, evaluation, and analysis of issues. Okay, and that is what we expect of you when it comes to integration of knowledge. Of course, you will apply issues, you will analyze issues, but at the end of the day, the real business you want to demonstrate is the ability to synthesize advanced issues, the ability to evaluate advanced matters, and propose workable solutions. So what then does the syllabus entail? The syllabus entails all themes of the CPA syllabus. I mean, from what you've covered from level 1 up to level 4. And of course, that includes accounting, it includes financial reporting, it includes finance, corporate finance, it includes audit matters, taxation, corporate governance, risk, technology, etc., etc. In other words, whatever you've covered up until today, whatever you've covered from paper 1 up to paper 17 is assumed technical and technical knowledge. So everything else is building onto those basics when it comes to paper 18. Current affairs is something I will emphasize again. And these may be issues of topical interest. It could be within the country, it could be within the region, it could be global, but topical. Now, that may not necessarily have been in the syllabus you will have covered in the prior papers. Current affairs evolve. Today, there might be an issue around foreign exchange rates. Tomorrow, there could be an issue around infrastructure development by government. Tomorrow, there might be an issue around the merger of government agencies. So the topical current affairs vary from time to time. The current affairs vary depending on the issues at hand, and you need to be on top of this as you prepare for the exam. And these could also be matters of national concern. It could be a security issue. It could be anything really, or business or economic trends. Yeah, but you ought to be well informed and well prepared along those lines. So then what are those specific skills that you have to develop if you are to meet the examiner's expectation, the first skills component is analytical skill. Analytical skills require you to consider the case study in its totality. Analytical skills require you to look at things in a wholesome manner and not in isolation. This enables you to draw relevant conclusions. Okay? You should be able to relate qualitative and quantitative data. The case studies you're going to get at this level are not only going to give you qualitative information, neither will it be only quantitative. Okay? So you must be able to analyze that information, relate the numbers to the subject, to the qualitative information, relate the two, and then draw the relevant conclusions. Like I will point out later on in the examiner's remarks, it is sometimes found that people ignore the quantitative information and they focus on qualitative issues. You find someone saying this entity is doing very well or is doing very badly because of certain opinions that have been given. But when you look at the numbers, the position might be different. Now that changes the dynamic completely. Okay, if the numbers are saying something else, then the opinion has a problem. And so your role as the analyst, your role as the advisor is to debunk the qualitative opinion and say, no, this opinion cannot hold because the numbers are saying X, Y, Z. That is analysis. But sometimes people focus or look at the two separately. You find someone focusing only on the qualitative and ignoring the quantitative, and that affects the holistic view of the case study. It affects the conclusions that they draw. And of course, it reflects poor analytical skills. So relate the qualitative and quantitative information. Look at all issues around the matter at hand. Look at all perspectives and then draw your conclusions thereafter. Lastly, on analytical skills, support your arguments with facts. Okay, these facts are going to be indicated either in the financial statements or in the quantitative information availed or in the additional reference material provided in form of appendices, maybe a newspaper article, maybe an expert opinion. Support your arguments with facts. Support your conclusions with facts. And those facts should come from the case study, unless, of course, it's a matter of topical current affairs, where you have the leeway to make reference to additional materials that are not necessarily part of the case study. But other than that, support your arguments with facts from the case study. Okay? Relate the cause and effect of issues. Okay? Discuss the issue and its implications. Discuss the issue and its implications. Or if you discuss an issue, comment on why it is an issue. That is what will bring out your analytical abilities. Okay. If you're making recommendations, those recommendations must flow from the discussions. Sometimes candidates, of course, they know that, yes, you have to present recommendations, but they present recommendations that are not in any way related to the discussions. Recommendations that are coming out of the blue, simply because they know that a report must have recommendations. But a report with recommendations that are not coming from the discussions is useless. Okay? Recommendations that are not coming from the discussions are as good as not there. So yes, you know that a report must have recommendations, good, but those recommendations must come from what you have discussed. That is very important. And when you look at the past examiners' reports, you'll see this and other matters being emphasized. So what I'm saying is that good analytical skills involve this, the discussion of the issues, supporting those discussions with facts from the case study, looking at both quantitative and qualitative information, zeroing down on what the critical issues are, and then from those critical issues, you draw recommendations. The recommendations must come from your discussions. Do not sneak recommendations into the report simply because you want to fill up a section on recommendations. Then there are conceptual skills. Conceptual skills refer to ability to comprehend complex issues. The case studies that you'll get at this level are much, much bigger than what you have seen in the prior papers. Sometimes you have up to 20 pages, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But these are big, big case studies that require you to comprehend the issues. They require you to understand and relate different aspects of the challenges at hand, and to focus on the big issues and to identify the real, problems, not just the symptoms. Those are conceptual skills, which of course you have to work on to be able to demonstrate to the examiner that you have, that you are able to comprehend, the complex scenarios. An example I can give on to bring out the conceptual skills is on the recommendations we've been talking about. You can have a case study where they have big issues, maybe big issues around going concern, maybe big issues around corporate governance, okay? But then you find a candidate listing their recommendations starting with the most minor of issues: staff accountability for money provided to them as the top number one recommendation or number one conclusion. Okay, so you must demonstrate proper conceptual skills, for example, by identifying the real issues and giving them priority, for example, in your recommendations. Then the question of judgment. Judgment is very subjective, but you have to demonstrate that you have sound judgment and that you are mature technically in terms of judgment. What does this entail? This, for example, could entail recognizing that you can have several options at your disposal. Okay, you may have several options at your disposal, and good judgment will ensure that you pick up the critical items, you'll evaluate the options, that you have balanced arguments that look at both the pros and cons of the different possibilities at hand. Okay, it will extend to commercial decisions. Sometimes candidates are too engrossed in the technical things that they forget the big picture. Okay, you won't shut down an organization simply because somebody has performed an unethical activity. Your focus should be on dealing with the ethical issue while at the same time continuing with the business decisions. That's an example. So you must demonstrate good judgment, for example, by picking up ethical arguments, but not overdwelling on ethical issues at the expense of sound commercial decisions. I hope that is clear. I'm not saying that you should run business unethically. No. What I'm saying is that many times candidates fail to demonstrate commercial awareness by being overly engrossed in ethical or internal control or other technical matters. So you must demonstrate maturity at this level in decision making. Okay, and the other way you might demonstrate that is by recognizing the need for assumptions. You must demonstrate the need for business logic. You must demonstrate that you understand business, because accountants are not there to just critique and critique and critique. Accountants are there to support businesses, to support the building of sustainable businesses. Okay, so you need to demonstrate to the examiners that you are able to make the right business decisions, the right commercial decisions, and sound ethical arguments. This will demonstrate your judgment. The last skill set is communication and presentation. This is a very, very critical skill set as well. How you communicate, how you present your work, to the examiner. Communication, as you know, is very broad, but for purposes of the exam, we shall focus on written communication. And this written communication includes the normal reports and other possibilities, possible mechanisms of communication. But on a technical level, your communication, the tone, the level of complexity that you use is highly dependent on the nature of your audience. Okay, if you're not writing to a fellow professional, okay, if you're not writing to an accountant or a finance professional, certain terms may not make sense to them. For example, if you're writing to a businessman, an entrepreneur, and you start, telling him about the internal rate of return is higher than the cost of capital, and you don't need to use those very technical terms. Depending on if you're writing to such an entrepreneur, okay, instead those terms will be narrowed down. Those terms will be simplified. Okay, you'll bring matters to his level or her level of understanding. For example, internal rate of return, what is that to an entrepreneur? Okay, what does it mean to an entrepreneur when you say this initiative should be accepted, this project should be accepted because the IRR is greater than the cost of capital? Will that person understand what you're saying? Okay, what if you break that down and talk about returns, for example, that this project will bring you certain returns that are higher than what you're spending or higher than the cost of finance that you've deployed into your business? Same message, packaged differently depending on the audience. Think about a transmittal letter. Think about a cover letter that will, support the report you are presenting to the appointing authority. Write an appropriate executive summary. Okay, I've underlined the word appropriate, and I hope you can all see it. It's underlined in bold. Why is it underlined? It's underlined because some candidates think that an executive summary is a replication of the case study. No, okay, it is not a replication of the case study. An executive summary is not a restatement of facts of the case study. It isn't, okay? An executive summary is, at a glance, an abstract of what the report is about. In other words, if someone read the executive summary, they can have a good feel of what the report is about. So what should be in an executive summary? You may need maybe one paragraph or two about the key issues at the organization at hand. What are the key issues? What are the topical issues there? Is it governance? Is it financial reporting? How old has the organization been in the mess? Are there any interventions that have been done? Just 2 paragraphs or 3 maximum, okay? Then go to the real issues. From your analysis, what are the issues that stand out? What are the issues that stand out from your analysis now? What have you found from your analysis? And what are the key next steps? That shouldn't be more than a page, maybe a page and a half, okay? But unfortunately, sometimes candidates spend a lot of time on summaries in which the whole page is repeating maybe page 1 and 2 of the case study. That is zero value addition. That is time wasted. That shows poor communication skills. Introduction and background sections, these must be very minimal just to contextualize the report. You don't have to repeat the paragraphs of what the material. Sentence construction, obviously, this is straightforward, okay? Language, grammar, and the like. But avoid use of slang. Slang is colloquial language. Slang is, the strategy should be implemented, pack-a-last. Now, pack-a-last is very, unofficial as a term. It is slang, in other words. Okay, and then basic things like handwriting. Of course, handwriting doesn't apply now that you're doing a computer-based examination, but mind the format. Why would you type a report and submit a report in font 8 or 7? Okay. Of course, that is now using computer-based submissions, but mind the formatting of your work. All that is communication. Information flow. What do you start with? What do you end with? Okay. I gave the example earlier on of recommendations that start with the most minor issues as opposed to picking up the most grave issues as a starting point. So all that feeds into your overall assessment in as far as communication skills are concerned. Then the presentation format, the layout of the report. Okay. A report is a report. A report is different from a memo, for example. Okay. A report is different from a memo. Okay. A memo is a loose, short communication means in organizations. To, from, date, subject. Usually maybe 2 pages maximum or 3. Okay, but a report can go up to thousands of pages, hundreds of pages. A memo will not have an executive summary. A memo is unlikely to have appendices. Okay, a memo will have maybe an introduction and then the content. But a report will have all the other facets: cover letter, cover page, introduction, executive summary, all the details, appendices, and all those other aspects. Sometimes you're asked to write discussion notes. Now, discussion notes are an informal means of communication. It won't have a background. It won't have a lot of detail. It will be maybe, sentences in bullets, short sentences, okay, with short paragraphs, if any, but in a less formal arrangement. Letters, you know what a letter is. Sometimes candidates have been asked to draft emails. So these are different possibilities. These are different possible means of communication that are available, for you to demonstrate how good you are in terms of communication. Of course, most of the time the examiners require a report. Most of the time they require, formal reports, but I've seen presentations severally. I've seen letters. I've seen discussion notes once in a while. Cross-referencing of your report should not be misleading. Don't just cross-reference because you want to show that you've cross-referenced. The examiners will check. Okay, so make the work presentable. Reference the right appendix. And the appendices must be relevant. Okay, the appendices must be relevant. A challenge that some candidates face, this I think has reduced a bit following the computer-based examinations. But in the past, where you have to do the analysis in handwritten form on the same day as the exam, candidates would force their appendices onto the report. You find someone has done some analytical work, and they want to force that analytical work onto the report, even when that analytical work is actually not relevant. Okay, so make sure that the appendices you attach to your report are relevant in this case, because you get the case study 24 hours earlier, go into the exam, get the requirement, answer the questions. Now, right now in this new dispensation, you know the requirement before you start writing. So make sure that you use the appendices appropriately. Don't just put appendices because you want to have a section on appendices. Let the appendices be relevant to the content you are discussing and make the correct references. Use reasonable illustrations. Illustrations like graphs, if relevant, tables, if relevant, can add value to your report. Okay. Instead of listing, putting the names of companies maybe shareholders in a paragraph, use a table, okay? Use a graph to demonstrate that the financial projections are feasible. Use a graph to put that, graphically, okay? Use a table to show what the cash flows are in terms of forecasts. So the illustrations can add value to your report, but again, they must be used appropriately. Moving forward, of course, the layout of the report is the other. The report layout is the general setup of the report. And I think I've commented on this already. Does the report have a cover page? Does it have a table of contents? Are the sections well laid out? Introduction and, executive summary before that, detailed findings. Do you have conclusions? Do you have recommendations? Basically, how is the report generally arranged is an area of interest to the examiner. So how then should we prepare for the exam? This section, I've split it into two broad areas. We've got the preparation tips in general terms, and then I have pre-exam tips and exam day tips. So what should you do between now and May? Of course, I'm assuming you have not started already, although I believe you've all started on this. Scan through the areas you've covered during the study on the CPA program. Okay, those areas are several. You've done financial accounting, you've done financial reporting, you've done corporate finance, you've done taxation, you've done audit, you've done ethics, you've done, all sorts of disciplines. Run through those areas and polish your technical skills. Remember, we said that the integration of knowledge is testing all the skills you've acquired over the years of study. And the very first skill that was examined in your first paper was technical knowledge, the test of technical skills, TTS, test of technical skills. So go back, think through those areas, polish your technical competencies. Think about those areas that you thought are irrelevant. I know as students, normally there are certain areas you're comfortable with, but there are also those that you're not comfortable with. There are things you like, but there are also things that you particularly hate. So go and look at those areas, especially the ones you never liked, and see whether they might be relevant, after all, in a typical practical business setting. Think about the current affairs. I talked about this earlier, but go back and look at topical developments. Think about the geopolitics. If there is a war in Ukraine and Russia, does it affect Uganda in any way? Could it affect Uganda in any way? Could it affect a business in Uganda in any way? What about the Middle East conflict? How is it likely to affect business operations in Uganda? Think about the topical developments, foreign exchange rates. What are the drivers? What is happening? Think about government policy. Government is merging agencies. Might that have implications on a business front? Those are examples of current affairs that the examiners could take interest in. Number 4 is very, very important. I don't know how much emphasis, I need to give to this. Practice the use of computers. Ever since the computer-based exams were rolled out last year, examiners have noted that candidates struggle with computer use. Please use computers. Try to use the computers before the exam. Do not wait for exam day. Do not wait for exam day to use your laptop and type. Technology has a way of misbehaving. Even me, this afternoon, you saw I struggled a bit, at the last. Practice the use of computers, ladies and gentlemen. Type. Go to Microsoft Word and type random issues. If you're not maybe if your job doesn't involve use of a computer on a daily basis, Find time and type random issues. Read newspaper articles and type them out again and format them into a report. Okay. Excel. Go to Microsoft Excel. Use the formulas that are there. Learn how to use additions, multiplications, the functions, sort, data. Practice the use of computers, ladies and gentlemen, because you're now in a computer-based exam dispensation. Okay? Use the computers before it is too late. PowerPoint. Try to prepare presentations using PowerPoint. Mock presentations. It doesn't have to be on technical things. Even if it is just to test yourself, just find something and, beautify it in a PowerPoint presentation. Number 4 is very, very important because majority of the candidates seem to struggle with use of computers in terms of typing, in terms of formatting the work, in terms of, creating appropriate paragraphs, creating alignment. Do not wait to attempt doing that in the exam. When it comes to other tips, ladies and gentlemen, the skills that I emphasized earlier must be practiced. Okay? You cannot read and develop conceptual skills. You cannot read and develop analytical skills. Okay? You cannot read communication skills. Unlike the technical skills you can read because you'll go and read audit theory and you'll learn about analytical procedures in audit. You'll learn about the financial statement assertions. You can read about the audit risk, okay? But you cannot read about conceptual skills. You can't read analytical skills. These are skills that you develop. So you must try to get yourselves engaged in analytical debates. When you see a story, when you see a case study, ask yourself, challenge yourself, what are the issues in this case study? What are the issues in this organization? Why are these issues? What are the top 3 issues in this entity? What do the numbers say? Okay. By doing that, you'll be able to develop analytical skills. You'll be able to develop the conceptual skills that we talked about earlier. Use the study materials provided by the Institute. The Institute has guided, by the way, in the integration study text. It has guided you on how you could go about that. Form discussion groups if possible, share ideas, debate issues, but challenge yourself to interpret organizational scenarios and see whether the issues you pick up do make sense. Okay? Pick interest in the business papers. This is where you're going to find topical current affairs. Okay? Don't only read about sports. I know the guys like sports. When they pick a newspaper, it is Mbappe, Arsenal, and the rest. No. You are an accountant in the making. Pick interest in the business pages. Okay? What is happening in economic management? What is happening in the financial markets? And you'll find very interesting stories therein that reflect the effect of current affairs, the effect of topical economic developments on businesses. And of course, take time to look at past examiners' reports. Those reports have actually most of the things I'm telling you about. Now, when it comes to the exam day, read the case study, read it, okay? Of course, you have 24 hours now to read the case study. But when you read it, don't just read like you're reading a novel, a fiction novel. No, read that case study and try to pick out the key issues. Identify the topical issues. Identify the hot issues in that case study. What are the grave strategic matters? What are the operational matters? Okay. And then back to the conceptual skills that I talked about earlier. Analyze that information. Okay, what do the numbers say? What do the opinions say? If I combine the numbers and the qualitative information, what are the top 2-3 issues that I see in this case study? And by the way, I will also tell you that good analytical assessment at that level can even start guide. I mean, you can start seeing where the examiner is likely to go with such a scenario. Okay, so then analyze that information. There are tools that you've covered over the years of study in terms of analysis. You can analyze a case study using so many tools. It can be ratio analysis if you have numbers. It can be SWOT analysis. It can be PESTEL. Okay, it can be, things like value chain analysis, depending on the case study that you have at your hand. So use those tools that you've covered over the years of study to try and analyze the case study, to try and find the issues, to try and find the critical issues in that case study. And that is analysis. Now, of course, the analysis you do at that point may or may not be relevant to the specific requirements that you get the following day. And that is not an error. That is by design. Okay. The analysis that you do is meant to enable you appreciate the case study at that point. And when the question requirement comes, some of that analysis may be useful. Some of it may not be as useful as you might have hoped. That is not a problem. That is by design. But I will also tell you that whether or not the analysis you've done ends up being part of the question requirement, it will still have helped you to identify the real issues in the case study. And if you've done that, believe me or not, the case study write-up will move much, much more smoother than for someone who didn't do any of that kind of analysis. Explore quantitative analysis options. Think about things like project appraisal. If the examiner is tending towards cash flow forecasts, then think about the possible project appraisal options. If the examiner has given you financial statements, as a minimum, do the ratio analysis. There is no way you can tell me, colleagues, that I've given you a set of financial statements to analyze a company and you do not do ratio analysis. Okay. In fact, if you present a report where the case study had financial statements and you've not computed even a single ratio, that alone is showing very poor synthesis and evaluation competencies. So certain things are almost standard. If you have financial statements, analyze them, compute the ratios, and draw the key findings from those ratio reviews. Okay, think about things like tax estimates. If the case study is pointing towards tax issues, explore the possibilities. What might the examiner be interested in on this tax matter? And use the 24 hours to try and get yourself prepared for what could come along those lines. When it comes to the exam day, this is, of course, 24 hours after receiving your case study, have an answer plan. Don't just start writing because they said it's computer-based, you start typing the answer. No, have a plan. Where do I start? Okay, what is the layout of my report? Maybe you lay out the sections of your report, the headings, identify the appendices that you think will be relevant to you, and put a section, put the subheadings, okay? And then start answering. Don't start with the executive summary. Don't start with the recommendations. How do you start with recommendations? And yet you didn't know what the question requirement was going to be, okay? How do you start with an executive summary before you've answered the question requirement and gone through? So you must have a plan when you come for day 2 and you enter that examination hall. Answer what the examiner has asked for. Do not answer what you want or what you thought you analyzed. The 24 hours you have is to acquaint yourself with the case study, identify the hot issues, identify the grave issues in the case study, okay? Not to necessarily project what the examiner is going to ask, because you don't know what the examiner's requirement will be. So when the exam time comes the following day and you have the specific requirement, don't answer what you think should have been asked. Answer the question. Don't answer what supports the analysis you think you did. Answer what the examiner has asked for. And then, like I said earlier on, have your audience in mind. Are you writing to a fellow professional? Are you writing to an entrepreneur? And this will determine the extent of technical language that you use. It will define the extent of simplicity that you use in your write-up. Very important, but often missed out. Balance the time spent on the various themes. The exam will usually have themes, maybe financial matters, maybe strategic aspects, maybe corporate finance, etc. Try to spend time on all those areas equally, so that you give attention to all the examiner's requirements. Do not rewrite the facts of the case study. In the exam reports, you will see that examiners have indicated sometimes candidates rewrite the facts of the case study. Okay? Restatement of the facts is not analysis. That's not analysis. Okay? Someone repeats what is in the case study, that the proprietor is a dominant figure and he's, he's not empowering the professionals. Yes, that is a statement of fact, but that's not analysis. The analysis would be, if the proprietor is a dominant character that does not empower professionals, what does that mean for the company? Okay, what does it mean for the company? What are the issues? What are the risks coming out of that? What has that cost the company? Could things have been better? Why? That is analysis now. So do not just restate the facts of the case study and presume that you are analyzing. Analysis is about relating one bit of information to another, drawing necessary conclusions, and highlighting why that is an issue or what could be done about it. Think about the quantitative aspects. I think I've highlighted this earlier as well. Support your observations with quantitative aspects where relevant. This could be ratios, like I said. It could be financial evaluations. It could be, any quantitative support that you have should be used to buttress your observations. Reason logically. Look at information in totality. Don't look at isolated incidents, independent of other facts. Look at things holistically. Look at things wholesomely. Okay, and that will show that you have maturity in decision making. Mind your language. Avoid jargon. Okay, avoid technical jargon. Avoid loose slang that, I don't want to call it street language, but avoid slang and focus on professional communication. And remember that the examiner wants to see application, synthesis, evaluation, analysis, not basic technical knowledge. I've mentioned this before. It is not the number of points that matters at this level. It's not a question of how many points did I put in this section. I gave the examiner 10 points. 10 points. It doesn't matter. You may write 10 points and get 2 out of 10. Okay? And then someone else presents 3 solid, well-discussed points and they come out with an 8 out of 10. Okay? So it's not the quantity that matters. It's the quality. And how do you reflect the quality of the argument? Analysis, synthesis, evaluation. Now, I would like to, as I move towards the end of the presentation, I would like to turn to some of the past examiners' remarks as extracted from the exam reports, which I hope you'll be able to read, as you prepare, because I think those examiner reports are available at the Institute. But in some of the recent exams, the following observations were made by the examiner. This is August 2023. It was noted that candidates struggled with computer use. And I've emphasized this. Candidates struggled with using a computer. How? Poorly formatted reports, missing tables of contents, missing section headings, misaligned pages, amongst others. Some candidates sent reports with very tiny font that is not legible. Okay. Those are examples of scenarios. So please practice using computers, type out things, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and write reports before you get into the exam. The more practice you do, the easier it will be for you to write a good report and a well-formatted report within the 4 or 6 hours that you'll have. The examiners also noted that the breadth of the discussion was narrow, and many candidates only focused on one strategic model to analyze the materials. Now, this is a scenario where candidates were asked to assess the operating environment of an entity. Now, given chunks and chunks of information, and given the level at which you are and the skills expected of you, you cannot have a 20-page case study and you tell me that you're using only one strategic framework to assess the operating environment. Of course, in this case, most candidates did a SWOT analysis, which is fine, it isn't wrong, but you can't say you're using only one framework where you have numbers, where you have financial statements. Clearly, you ought to use an array of strategic analysis tools to assess the operating environment. So the breadth of discussions was considered to have been narrow, meaning that a lot of critical information was not covered by the candidates. In the next set of observations, the examiners noted that financial accounting and reporting were the worst performed areas. Candidates seemed to struggle with the share valuation and evaluation of a decision to close a business unit. Okay, that is finance, that is corporate finance, and this was a challenging area to the candidates. Many candidates didn't do a financial evaluation. I think I've highlighted this in the first observation. You have quantitative data, but people completely ignored it. Now, how do you expect to have a holistic assessment of a case study if you've completely ignored quantitative data? Clearly, your response, clearly your solution will be deficient of some critical observations. Cases of outlining, you cannot outline at this level, not even at level 4. Okay, but here you are. Examiners noted that there were disappointing cases of outlining by candidates. Okay, some point raising bullet points that are not evaluated. This clearly does not demonstrate synthesis, evaluation, and analysis of issues, and indeed does not demonstrate your ability to deliver professional solutions. June 2023, what did the examiners note? They noted, again, absence of supporting discussions, absence of evaluation of facts in the case study. In other words, someone just puts a bullet that does not contextualize whatever they are saying with the materials provided. Okay, that ends up being like a level 1 answer. It ends up being like a test of professional knowledge, TTS, technical knowledge, not even professional knowledge, test of technical knowledge. if you can't support your argument with facts of the case study, you're answering like a level 1 candidate. And will you pass the exam? Sorry, you will not, if that's what you're doing. You cannot pass integration by presenting bullet answers. You cannot pass integration by presenting shallow arguments. Instead, you must discuss things in depth. You cannot discuss integration of knowledge generically. Okay, you have a case study, a whole 20 pages. So you must discuss those issues with reference to the case study. You must contextualize your observations. And when you do that, you'll pass with flying colors. I've quoted an example from the June 2023 exam report. Questions regarding financial stability were often discussed by candidates without reference to the case study. And yet the materials provided had regulatory issues around measures to preserve financial stability. Okay. But some candidates ignored that material. And so they were discussing financial stability as if it was a theoretical, structured question. And yet, in reality, it was actually a scenario-based question, case study-based. So at that level, you do not show the skills that are required of you. Cases were identified in June where candidates wasted time on appendices that were not relevant to the question requirements. So why do you spend time on an appendix that is not relevant to any requirement? That's why I said you need to plan your answer. Plan your answer, know what is going to be part of your report, know what is going to be part of your appendices before you start writing or typing for that matter. Number 4, candidates continued to spend a lot of time repeating, reproducing case study materials in form of introduction and background information. And in some cases, up to 50% of the entire report was introduction and background, or even executive summary. How can you have 50% of your report in preliminary pages? Clearly, such a report has a problem and you cannot pass the paper. Okay. Someone was asking the difference between an executive summary and the background and introduction. The executive summary is an abstract of the whole report you have prepared. Okay. It is not an executive summary of the case study. Nope. It is an executive summary of the report you have prepared and submitted. It is an executive summary of the work you have done, not an executive summary of the case study. So it will highlight the critical issues the company is faced with, a little bit of background information about the company, then the real business, that detail should not last more than 2 paragraphs. Short paragraphs, maybe even 1 paragraph. Then you go to the real issues. What are the top issues that you've handled in the case study, which are in your report? What are the top issues? What are the critical matters? And what do you recommend? What have you recommended? What are the key conclusions? That is your executive summary. The background or introductory part of the report, on the other hand, is material about the company at hand. That is to help you contextualize, to help the reader rather contextualize the subsequent details. So preliminary pages, that is cover page, table of contents, executive summary, introduction or background, cannot cover 50% of your report. What report will that be? Clearly, if it is, then the content has a very big problem. Either you've just outlined or you have no content. And if there is no content, then how can you have such a big executive summary and introductory section? So those are things for you to think about as you prepare. A little bit more flavor on the past exam observations. In March 2022, there was a requirement with candidates asked to provide advice on a maximization of value from internal audit and whether it should be outsourced. Now, whereas the candidates were generally knowledgeable about internal audit and its scope, very few, if any, articulated the discussion on whether audit should be outsourced. Okay. In some other cases, candidates only discussed the types of audits. Now, this is a typical scenario where someone answers what they know, not what the examiner has required. Okay. The question is, how can you maximize value from internal audit? What do you need to do to get the best out of internal audit? This should be about skilling the auditors, giving them independence, giving them adequate resources, giving them adequate reporting lines, okay? And then discuss the outsourcing. But some candidates instead discussed the types of audits. Pitfalls of cost leadership and what needed to be changed if the strategy was to work. Most candidates focused only on the pitfalls and not, or rather than completely ignored, what needed to be done to make the strategy work. So these are typical observations from past exams. In another question, candidates were required to clarify on the chief accountant's concerns, about risk management. And indeed, some candidates described the risks as opposed to an in-depth evaluation of the relevance of risk management function, because that was the concern of the chief accountant. The chief accountant in that scenario had indicated that risk is unnecessary, that risk is a cost center that's not adding value, so it should be done away with. So you were asked to comment on that. But instead of dealing with the real issue, some candidates were discussing types of risk. Okay. Measures to enhance future profitability. Again, same thing. Candidates focused on the past performance as opposed to looking at, future performance and how that could be enhanced. So these past observations are really meant to show you that, you have to be mindful of what you say. Don't say what you know, but say what the examiner wants you to say. Okay. In March 2022, still, candidates were required to comment on the relationship between dividend yield and return on equity. Okay. And the case study was about investment. There were investors who were looking to buy, into certain companies. They had money and they were looking to invest it. So candidates were basically expected to bring out that fact, which was in the case study, okay, and then advise eventually on how the two ratios could inform such a decision. But look, okay, candidates could not relate the two ratios, and they could not even comment, on the fact that the ratios were affected by strong profit performance. Obviously, they wouldn't comment on the investor interests either, because it was the comment was meant to inform the investors on how best to go about their investment in the equities. So generally, the point I'm making is that analyze the information, okay? Analyze the information, use the facts of the case study, mind your audience, okay? Contextualize whatever you're saying. Don't answer generically. There was a question in June 2022. This company was struggling with money. The lenders were making noise. They were actually almost attaching the property. There were other pressures in terms of competition and internal inefficiencies. So the MD was going out to meet potential lenders, okay? And candidates were asked to draft an agenda for the board's meeting, for the MD's meeting, rather, with the financials. An agenda and discussion notes, of course, okay? Now, people, of course, everyone presented an agenda, opening prayer, introductions, and what. But in the context of the case study that Ugicon was, Uganda Construction Company, there is no way the MD could go for such a meeting without commentary on the company's financial performance or financial position. The company was struggling with debt. It was struggling to repay its loans. It was actually restructuring some of its debt. Okay. So how does the MD go for such a meeting? And on the agenda, he is not in any way commenting about the financial performance and financial position of his company, which wants to obtain funding. These are the things that show maturity. These are the things that show judgment as you will be assessed. And then the same exam, at some point, there was a question around the relevance of matrix structure. But again, people explained what a matrix structure is, but without showing how it would work at the company at hand. So contextualization, generic responses vis-a-vis well-synthesized submissions. So as I close my presentation, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to leave some time for questions and answers. As I close, generally, there are certain good things that the examiners have noted. They've noted, if you see in the past reports, the report layouts are generally good, except issues around cross-referencing, except issues around use of charts and tables. Those are areas that are wanting. The candidates generally display strong technical knowledge in certain areas, such as corporate governance, risk management, corporate strategy. These are areas that I think candidates have demonstrated to examiners that they are well grounded. But there are also areas that, sort of continuously keep coming out in the examiner's reports. Corporate finance issues, issues around financial analysis, issues around the evaluation of financing options, financial reporting matters, ethical issues, things that candidates seem to struggle with. Communication matters or approaches that are not the conventional report type. For example, presentation formats, letters. These are things that candidates seem to struggle with. Waste of time in long background information, waste of time in reproduction of case study materials in the reports, excessively long executive summaries that are replicating case study material. Those are problems. Contextualization and depth of discussions is a big, big problem. The biggest challenge actually at this level, contextualization and depth of discussions. And of course, conclusions and recommendations based on discussions. Some candidates think that all you need is a section on recommendations, even when the recommendations don't make sense, or even when the recommendations have not been discussed. Unfortunately, that will not work. That will not make you pass. Your recommendations, your conclusions must come from what you have discussed. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, this is a fact, not an opinion slide like most of the others we've gone through. This is a factual slide presenting the pass rates for the past maybe 3-4 years. And you'll note that ever since we introduced the computer-based assessment, the pass rate has oscillated between around 38 to 39. Okay, and those are maybe 3-4 sittings so far. But even then, the pass rates have not been very good from December 2021. Since COVID, you should say, they've barely gone past the 50% mark, which happened in March 2022. Okay, So the message from this slide is that you've got to struggle, you've got to work hard so that you make sure that you're among those that cross come May 2024, which is just over, maybe it's 8 weeks from today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is as far as I will go. Thank you so much for listening in, and I'll hand back to the moderator who will lead us through the Q&A. Otherwise, thank you, and I hope you've picked 1 or 2 things that will help you excel in this paper come May when you face the examiners. Thank you. Over to you, moderator.
Yeah, thank you so much, presenter Andrew. You have really done justice regarding the handling of paper 18 by those who are aspiring to sit for it come this May. It has been very good, and I think listeners have enjoyed it. We have about more than 20 minutes for the Q and the A, and so far I can see there are only 3 issues there. And the first one, you have attended to it because you hinted that someone was wondering about the difference between executive summary and the rest of that. And you have very well answered that. I can see another one which is just coming in. We saying whether they shall be able to receive the presentations, and I want to say yes, indeed, we shall share them through your portal accounts, and you will be able to receive them. Then the other issue was about ensuring uniformity. How the institute is ensuring uniformity, that some exam centers have all the computers, and is talking about 2000 and 2000 years as old as 2000. But from what I see, from what I know, when ICPA is sourcing for computers, the latest version that we accept is 2010. And I think 2010, even if it is old, but it is very, very versatile. And it can it can be able to prepare the answer without a lot of trouble. And besides, what is required actually on the computer is for the students to use that computer to make the answer. There are not very many applications that are required. A simple knowledge of Word, how to use Word, whether it is 2010 or 2023 as being asserted, there is enough, it is just still good for them to use that computer and prepare their answer. I think, Andrew, you can see some of the other comments, and I wish you could respond to them directly. Otherwise, I have responded to these ones here, which are on the part of ICPAU as the organizers of the exams. I can see some of them are just complimentaries, others are thank you messages. I don't see any other issue which needs to be attended to, either by the presenter or by myself from the part of ICPAU. And as I have said, we are going to share the presentation, and the sharing, as usual, will be through the portal accounts, so the students to be able to receive the presentations as soon as possible.
Yes, Charles, there is somebody who has indicated that that is Mweba Zejak. He says, is there some technique you can share that can help a student to read, understand, and remember the key contents of the case study?
Please go ahead and respond to that one.
Yes, the response is that obviously yes. What you have to do when you get that case study is, like I said, read it maybe once, read it twice, and then use the various tools of analysis that you've covered over the years of study. Remember, the frameworks, the strategic tools, the strategic frameworks help you to identify key issues in a case study and summarize the topical issues. Those tools are several, depending on the case study. It could be a value chain analysis. It could be SWOT analysis, usually cuts across. You could use the 5 forces model. You can do financial ratio analysis. You can do functional analysis. So basically, you need to find the appropriate framework that will help you summarize the key issues of the case study. And that is the only way you do it. You can't say there is any other technique. You need to use the frameworks to identify the key issues. Okay? If you have numbers, if you have financial statements, ratio analysis is a given. If you have things like maybe projections, financial projections, then think around project evaluation. Think around potential, appraisal of the projects. Of course, you may not have the full set of information at that point, but think around it. How can it be applied in such a scenario? Make some assumptions, to help you draw particular conclusions. So that is as much as I can say for you, Mr. Mwebaze.
I'm not seeing any other questions apart from Yona.
There is one, Charles. There is the last one for you as Secretariat.
Yes.
Rosette Businje is asking whether you will support them with teaching on how to save and upload their work on the portal during the exam.
Yeah, actually I wanted to make that one as an announcement. We are organizing a special engagement for people going to sit for this paper and take them through how to save their work. Because previously we have noticed where people have uploaded shortcuts instead of uploading the actual work. We shall take them through, and I hope we are going to mobilize amongst themselves those who have registered for this paper to attend that webinar. But we shall reach towards the exams, and we shall communicate appropriately so that people can attend and gain that knowledge. Regarding the soft copy of the case study, he's asking, can you give us with the soft copy of the case study ahead, case study instead of hard copy to save time? I don't know. If you are given a soft copy and the hard copy, I don't know which one is easier to read and deal with. And of course, even if they are to give you a soft copy, they will not give you a soft copy, a Word soft copy. It would be a PDF, which you may not be able to copy and paste. So we still believe that a hard copy of the case study is better than a soft copy, and we shall continue giving a hard copy. After all, you receive a soft copy a day before, and you can deal with it the way you want. But on the day of the exam, we shall continue providing a hard copy of the same. I think all the issues have been dealt with. There is no other pending issue. And once again, let me express my sincere gratitude to our presenter, who has done very well for us, and also to thank the attendees for having been a good audience. I can see the participants reached well beyond 100, and that is very good indeed. because normally the number of students vary between 110, 150, around there. So if you get that 100 plus, that is a very high percentage of attendance. And as I have said, for those who are listening in, we shall have a special engagement on how to save your work. And we are saying it will be toward the exam session so that what you get, you don't forget easily, so that it will still be fresh when you attend the examination. So mobilize, tell your colleagues who have not been able to attend that engagement is coming. Andrew, there is another comment from Jack. I don't know whether you can throw some light about it, do with the background section of the report.
Yes, I was trying to type a response. I thought there won't be enough time, but it's well, I can quickly comment on it. So the thing is, there is no standard really. You can't say that this is the content that must be in an introductory or background section. Just know that you need minimal information to contextualize the case study for the reader. Just imagine if I picked that report, before I go into the specific requirements that are laid out maybe in the following sections, what is that top-notch information that I should know about this case study? Okay, for example, a company may have gone through a merger recently. Okay, that is a fact that is likely to affect its operations. A company may have gone through a diversification, it may have gone through a split, it may have disposed of a subsidiary, it may have had governance issues that have just happened in the recent past. You know, those are the kind of things that will contextualize the issues that follow in the subsequent pages. You don't need to spend a lot of time on company name. Company name is almost a given. Shareholders, maybe if it is a matter that is topical, okay, maybe there is a shareholder dispute, you could go into the details of the ownership, but that is almost information that you don't need to restate in that point. The focus really would be on what the real issues are, what issues have been happening in the company. Shareholder details would be relevant, maybe if there is a shareholder dispute, or if there are issues around raising capital, or if there are issues around dividends, or if there are governance issues. But if there are no governance issues, details of shareholders and details of who the key managers are may not be critical as part of the background. Instead, your focus will be on what the discussion issues are, and maybe the factors leading to those kind of things. Then for Mary, she's asking more light on the recommendations and conclusions coming from the discussion. Previously, we were told that recommendations come from SWOT analysis and corporate governance weaknesses. Mary, that is not wrong, but I don't want you to cram that recommendations come from SWOT analysis and corporate governance weaknesses. That is not correct. That is like a bit of cram work, which is wrong, okay? Because you can have a case study that has no corporate governance weaknesses. So are you saying there will be no recommendations? You can have a case study that has nothing on governance, okay? SWOT analysis, yes, but the examiner may not require your SWOT analysis. So you can't say that recommendations will come from SWOT. That was maybe probably at business policy level. I don't know who told you that, okay? What you must know is that whatever you are recommending should come from what you have discussed. And in this case, whatever you're recommending should be reflected in the discussions you've put in the report, which are the examiner's requirements. Okay. If the examiner, if your case study, for instance, had corporate, like the ones we've highlighted here, okay, the chief accountant was complaining about risk management. He said risk management is an unnecessary cost center. Why should we continue budgeting for it? Okay. And then there was an argument around outsourcing. The examiner's requirement was for you to comment on the chief accountant's thoughts and whether or not audit should be recommended. And you're going to discuss that. You'll say, no, the chief accountant is not right because risk management adds value to operations of an entity in the following ways. You add the issues around outsourcing. What are the pros? What are the cons in the context of that case study? Is it justified? Do they have the money to pay for it? Okay. And from that, you'll have a recommendation of what you think is the best. Now, you cannot say that that recommendation is coming from a corporate governance weakness. Neither can you say it is coming from a SWOT analysis. Of course, yes, you may have done a SWOT analysis as an appendix or as a tool to support your earlier assessments, but the recommendations are not coming from the SWOT appendix. They're coming from what you've actually discussed. So that has to be very clear, and that flow must be seen, because as the examiners read your answers, they expect to see that flowing into whatever you recommend at the end of the day. I hope that's a little clearer for you, Mary. Great.
Thank you, Andrew. And the comment from Emmanuel talking about a PDF which you can copy. I have already stated that we shall not give soft copies of the papers, we should give hard copies. Then Patricia is wondering where when the 24 hours end. And to clarify that we count from 9 o'clock when you receive the exam, when you receive the paper, to 9 o'clock when you write the paper. So when you count those hours, 24 hours, and you can apportion the 24 hours in the best way possible to you. But as a reminder, previously, this time used to be 2.5 hours. Scan through that scenario, understand it, and then do all the preparations, and then you be given 3.5 hours to write, which would make it 6 hours. But if you get the exam at 9, and you'll be required to answer the examination at 9 the following day, I think that is a lot of time for you. Not much has changed. The length of the scenarios have not changed much. The layout of the answers have not changed much, or have not changed at all, apart from the requirement to use a computer to write the answer. But much of the things have remained more or less the same. So you have far more time now than you previously had before June 2023, when we started requiring candidates to use computers to write their answers. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other comments coming in. Though we still had some more minutes. Once again, thank you so much, Andrew, for this presentation. Thank you very much, the audience, for being good and tuning in, and remaining tuned in up the end. And I wish you all, especially the candidates, success in the forthcoming exams. Don't forget that we are organizing an engagement of students who will sit for this paper, and especially take them through how to upload their answers, which has proved to be challenging to some candidates, but not very many. Many have been uploading their work very well, apart from a few. But we hope that when we take them through that engagement, then everything will go on smoothly with them. And with that, I bring this engagement to an end with a very big thank you to you all.
Thank you, Charles. It's been a big pleasure, and good luck to the candidates. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.
All right. Back to you, our hosts. Can we end this engagement, please?